Hello, and thank you for watching this Corn Belt Regional Forecast. I'm Andrew Pritchard, meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, you guys have been watching Eric and I for a long time, and Eric longer than me, so I bet if I told you that we've got the jet stream doing something like this with a big trough in the west, and then very strong jet stream winds racing across the central part of the country, racing across the Midwest into the Corn Belt, combined with a strong temperature gradient across the same area. I'll draw the jet stream in here, racing across the midsection of the country, racing over the top of this temperature gradient. I bet you could tell me what kind of outcome we get from a pattern like that. And if you guessed a lot of precipitation, the development of storm systems across the central part of the country, you would be correct. We've got to talk about a couple of waves here across parts of the central and eastern Corn Belt that could even deliver the first accumulating snow to parts of Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, into parts of northern Indiana, and perhaps Michigan. We're also talking about a lot of cold air sinking into a big chunk of the country, really the western 2/3. And we've got about 10 different states here that are breaking the color bar, which is 20 degrees cooler than average. So just unprecedented temperature anomalies here as we go through the next 5 days into the first couple of days of November. And then even lingering beyond, dealing with some of the after effects here, keeping a cooler pattern locked in place. Some of these patches here with the purple shading, that's actually where the model is picking up on where we've got snow sticking around on the ground, accumulating snow, keeping things even a little bit cooler with the added help from that frozen precipitation on the ground. Now, as we look at the next 10 days, the precipitation story is really going to be dominated by the next 3 or 4. And of course, that is this storm system or this pair of waves that will be traveling along this frontal boundary, bringing a swath of precipitation to, again, areas kind of generally along and east of that line from the border of Illinois and Indiana back into parts of eastern Kansas. Now, we're going to see some light precipitation in these areas here as we look at parts of the high plains, Nebraska, Kansas, into much of Wisconsin and Iowa, but talking about lighter precipitation in those areas, but certainly not dry. But then we flip down here, we look at the next 10 days. Again, not much difference here. We'll see a couple potential little clipper-like systems move through, potentially delivering some light precipitation as we head in the days 5 through 10 time period, but really much of this is going to be dominated by the next few days. And then again, not getting out of this without some frozen precipitation. We're looking at the GFS ensemble forecast probability of 3 inches of snow or more accumulating as we head through 7 p.m. Friday. So just looking at this next round of precipitation here, again, seeing some fairly high likelihoods here across parts of the high plains, but also noting this swath that has been consistently painted here from eastern Kansas into northern Missouri, parts of eastern Iowa, northwest Illinois, into far southern Wisconsin and Michigan, talking about potentially, several inches of a heavy, wet snow accumulating over the next 48 hours. Now, the last 24 hours have been relatively quiet, dealing with some light to moderate rain along this same frontal boundary. Even areas here where we're not seeing precipitation showing up here over the last 24 hours, it hasn't been dry. It's been more of a low mist, low-hanging clouds, dreary, gloomy, light rain, light mist. So across parts of central eastern Illinois into Indiana and then south into the lower Mississippi Valley, we have seen some light precipitation across that area, really just a gloomy couple of days. Now, looking at the satellite picture, you can really easily pick out the jet stream picture that I painted for you already. This big trough across the west, with jet stream winds racing across the central part of the country, beginning to draw a lot of moisture northward. You can kind of see that already in the form of some showers and storms across the Gulf Coast. And over the next 24 to 48 hours, we'll really begin to light up this area here. Right along that temperature gradient, again, drawing a lot of moisture northward. As we take a look at the precipitable water values here, you can see that stream northward before the area of low pressure kind of kicks that drier air mass in, that cooler and drier air mass. We'll watch this once again, watching the moisture transport northward into the central and eastern Corn Belt as we head into Wednesday. And then Thursday now, we see that push of drier air, cooler drier air coming on the backside as the area of low pressure takes off to the northeast. So what does this look like then if we take a look at the precipitation type loop from the high-resolution NAM model, bringing it back, starting off here on Tuesday morning. Again, watching some of this light precipitation moving out of the eastern Corn Belt, stepping out the door early this morning here in Champaign, Illinois, which is right about here. Still a light mist falling, even though it doesn't show up on the radar. It's not going to be showing up on the forecast radar imagery here, but knowing that it's a gloomy and dreary day out there across the eastern Corn Belt, even if we don't have precipitation falling just yet, some areas with that light mist. But then heading into the overnight, the late evening into the overnight, we'll start to see that precipitation area begin to expand across the southern plains, across the Ozarks, moving into central Illinois overnight, creeping into parts of Indiana, southern Michigan by the time we get to Wednesday morning. And waking up on Wednesday morning now, enough cold air coming in on the backside, again with this strong frontal boundary right across this area. So this is when we get our first chance for some accumulating snow across northern Missouri, parts of eastern Iowa, into northern Illinois. Some light flurries possible on the backside here as well, across parts of the high plains, Colorado into Kansas, and maybe southern Nebraska as well. We'll take the drawings off. We'll head through the day on Wednesday now, watching this first wave kind of move out, seeing the heavier rain move across the eastern Corn Belt from Indiana into Ohio as we head into Wednesday evening and Wednesday night. Heading into the overnight Wednesday, though, into Thursday morning, that's when we see the next wave begin to push through, bringing another round of heavier precipitation to Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. And this is where we get the second chance for another round of heavy, wet snow, potentially accumulating a couple of inches here, maybe 5 to 6 in the heaviest areas here. I think some of the raw model output going to be overdoing things here. That's often the case with some of these early snows that we get in October and early November. But again, knowing that here it is as we head through Halloween, a scary weather forecast here as we talk about, even as cold air wraps in on the backside, perhaps across central Illinois, all the way towards the Illinois-Indiana border, perhaps not picking up snow accumulation, but certainly looking more and more likely that we may see our first snowflakes of the season, even that far east and to the south across central Illinois into western Indiana, that we could see our first snowflakes here on Halloween. Now, taking this out, looking at the total just liquid accumulated precipitation, again, noting the swath heaviest here from the Ozarks, from Oklahoma and Arkansas northward across parts of Missouri, much of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan, picking up anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain. Taking the drawing off, and again, noting this corridor here was where I was talking about, not picking up quite the significant precipitation, not getting the 1 to 3 inches, but not necessarily being totally dry from this either. Now, the total snow accumulation, this is from the high-resolution NA model, and I intentionally cut off the snow totals, which will be listed over here, because, again, the model's likely going to be overdoing that. What I want you to notice is just the corridor here that we're seeing the highest likelihood of some snow stacking up. Again, this will be a heavy, wet snow that compacts, probably just stacking up several inches here, maybe 5 or 6 in the heaviest corridor, but northern Missouri into eastern Iowa, northern Illinois, parts of southeastern Wisconsin into Michigan. Looking at the first chance here, a pretty good chance of some accumulating snow. And again, it's right along this frontal boundary that once it moves through, as it slowly does so, but once it does, we get into the later part of the week, into the weekend, dropping that very cold air mass into a big chunk of the middle of the country. Now, as we look a little bit further out, again, I teased that the most significant precipitation comes from this Wednesday, Thursday storm system. Once we get this out of here, we get into Friday morning now, looking for the chance for maybe some flurries coming in on the backside. We're going to switch to a pattern that really just focuses on the chance for maybe some of these quick-moving clippers to move through, so some light snow possible across the Great Lakes here Friday and Saturday. And then really we lose some confidence in just showing you, even as we head into Monday and Tuesday, not talking about any significant precipitation. The next one that's kind of consistently shown up here is a quick-moving clipper-like system here, really only likely going to impact the northern plains, the Great Lakes, even as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday. So we got to deal with a lot of precipitation across the central and eastern Corn Belt over the next 48 to 60 hours. But then we do get a break from the precipitation while we kind of just sit in that cold air mass for the next 5 to 7 days, if not a little bit longer. Playing this out once more, another way of looking at that, the total accumulated precipitation from the GFS model. Again, you see a lot of that accumulating early on. There's that quick little potential clipper system that moves through during the earlier part of next week, but really focusing in on the next couple of days. Now, again, just looking at the the European 500 millibar height anomalies, this is going to kind of highlight, again, the temperature pattern as we head through the next several days. Here's this first trough that has to move through. This gets out of there, and then we switch to this pattern where we've really got a trough kind of focused in the east here, the northeast across the Hudson Bay, ridging off towards the west, and that again locks us into this pattern where we get kind of reinforcing shots of cooler air and those chances for some light precipitation, disorganized storm systems, maybe some light snow across the north. We'll finish then taking a look at high temperatures over the next few days, bringing it back here to Tuesday. Cold air slowly making its way in from west to east. High temperatures below freezing across the Dakotas and the high plains into northern Minnesota. all the way to the 60s and 70s in cross parts of Ohio into Kentucky and Tennessee. 40s in the dividing line there across the central Corn Belt, the mid-Mississippi Valley. High temperatures for the day Wednesday, once again freezing, creeping into parts of Iowa and Minnesota. High temperatures for the day Thursday, a bit warmer as you head off towards the west, but started to get that cooler air mass now in the midsection of the Corn Belt. High temperatures for the day on Thursday on Halloween in the 30s across parts of Kansas, Missouri, northward from there into Illinois, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. Friday and then Saturday, really keeping that cooler air mass. I mean, high temperatures in the 30s and 40s across the entire Corn Belt here for the weekend. Low temperatures then, a lot of cold air. We'll be dropping below freezing by the time we get to the end of the week for just about everyone in the Corn Belt. Overnight lows as we wake up today. Going to bed tonight, very similar story as we wake up tomorrow. Thursday morning lows, freezing temperatures creeping all the way into South Texas now, making their way across central Illinois into the eastern Corn Belt. Friday morning now, waking up with freezing temperatures across basically the entire Corn Belt, perhaps wet eastern Ohio, waking up a couple degrees above freezing, but Saturday now, the entire Corn Belt dropping below freezing Friday night into Saturday morning. Now, as always, Eric Snodgrass will have an in-depth look at the long-range forecast tomorrow morning. We'll have our look at the next 1 to 2 weeks in the Thursday morning ag forecast video, and then we'll be back to talk about the Corn Belt specifically on Friday morning. Have a great day.